Hey, everybody. Welcome into Redacted. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And on this show, we try to question everything. We have no agenda except seeking the truth. So welcome along on our journey. Thank you guys so much for joining us here live on this Wednesday. It's 4 p.m. Eastern time.
I have an agenda. I want to see Julian Assange go free.
Yes.
That is something that's personally important to me, professionally important to me. There's news tonight that the Biden administration may be considering Australia's plea to drop the charges against Julian Assange. Obviously, he would do this for an election year boost.
Yeah, wait till 3.5 years into your presidency before you do it.
Quite obviously, I don't mind saying I absolutely want that to happen. I am biased in favor of Julian Assange's release.
Yeah,
I don't care if it's purely for selfish reasons. I really don't give a shit why they do it. Just do it.
Yeah,
absolutely. Just do it. He won't come out in support of the Press Act, by the way. He won't support freedom of the press when asked about that, but he certainly will come out and maybe will let Julian Assange out of prison.
I had this thought today. Here's a thought experiment. Let's go through this in the chat, though. Because what if something like this did get Biden reelected? Would it be worth it to us, the trade? Because I want this really badly, but I also really don't want to be stuck with Biden for another 4 years.
Worth it to us? What do you mean?
Like
worth it?
the American populace.
Oh, would the American people care?
You're talking like another possible 20 million immigrants coming in that time period or more, you know?
Right.
So it's like,
this is a really tough conundrum thought experiment that I put myself into.
I started typing that in our personal text messages. I was like, it would be worth it just to get another term from Biden to have this happen. And then I was like, I'm not going to send that because I don't think it is.
No way.
Well, it's easy for us to say we're not his family, right? But we are personally invested. But that one stumped me. I gotta admit that one was tough, but I want it. I want it right now.
Well, we got a lot of other news we're going to get to tonight because President Biden has come out and said he's considering also, this is like part of like his electioneering, I guess, right now, trying to figure out what he can do to try to win re-election because we just got terrible inflation numbers today showing, yes, inflation going back up again. So is that going to force the Fed's hand now to, instead of slashing interest rates, increase interest rates? I mean, they are in a world of hurt right now. So the Biden administration, President Biden saying, yeah, you know what, I'm going to look into my executive order powers to see what I can do about closing the United States border. This is, of course, comes right after they issue this terror alert that the United States is now under a terror threat warning where we could have major terrorist attacks in large U.S. gatherings. So we're going to talk about that on the show.
We're also going to talk about hate crime laws. They are spreading like COVID. And guess what? They make cities less safe because police can't actually deal with real crimes. This is a shock to nobody who warned about it, but we're going to show it to you anyway.
We're also going to talk about Dr. Fauci, and Senator Rand Paul is out with a new investigation. Senator Rand Paul is going to join us here on Redacted tonight to talk all about Dr. Fauci, his findings about this COVID cover-up. We're going to talk about all of that and more coming up on the show tonight. But first, we do have a daily newsletter. We'd love for you all to subscribe to it. It is our way to stay connected with you. I mean, these big tech platforms love to censor us, and we are heading into an election year, of course, so they are going to be censoring, independent media all the more. So please, please, please go to redacted.inc and sign up for our free newsletter. We give you a great newsletter first thing in the morning, catching you up on some big stories that you might have missed while you were sleeping. You can read it in about 5 or 10 minutes over your cup of coffee in the morning. And, we cover a bunch of stories that you're just not going to see. If you were like to go to CNN.com or FoxNews.com or whatever, you're not going to see a lot of these stories. We really try to cover stories we think need amplification. So it's just written by Natalie and I first thing in the morning. We cover some markets. We cover some things you might have missed, and it's totally free. But I would just highly encourage all of you to stay connected with us. Just go to redacted.inc. It's not .com, it's .inc. Put in your email address. You will receive a welcome email from me, which is clayton@redacted.inc. And then you just need to verify it. It might go to your spam folder, it might go to your junk folder. And then tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, you'll receive the newsletter first thing in the morning. Again, it's redacted.inc. Well, the Biden administration is about to do the unthinkable at the U.S. southern border. Suddenly, and miraculously, President Biden has found Jesus, and suddenly he's looking at what executive powers he has to close down the border. You can't make this up. the president said this yesterday, that he's now considering closing the border through executive powers. He's looking into it suddenly 3 years into his presidency. Meanwhile, fireworks today in Congress just a short time ago as members of Congress grilled Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas for his failure to secure the border and lying about these deportation numbers as part of his opening statement. We just deported 630,000. We've done more than any president has since 2013. We are your deportation administration. Watch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. I want to go back to a statement that you made in response to the chairman's question about how many people we have deported. You said 630,000 have been returned. That is not accurate. The actual ICE deportations is 142,580. All those other people that you're talking about were rejected at the border. These are not ICE deportations, and you conflate those two numbers, and it's aggravating to me that you do that.
Former 24-year veteran of the Customs and Border Patrol, J.J. Carroll, was watching this hearing, and he says Mayorkas is straight up lying, and we thought, let's ask JJ what he thought of this hearing, painful as it was for you to watch this thing. JJ, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Clayton. And yes, that is the best characteristics you could, or adjective you could describe. Painful. It is so painful to watch him lie. But I've gotten used to it. And you want to touch on that. We're the deportation force, meaning DHS. That's a lie. That's a lie that he concocted when he was under President Obama as the director of USCIS and then second in charge of DHS as the deputy. And why it's a lie is they conflate all the we call it voluntary returns of Mexican nationals. So every time I would arrest a Mexican national, I would offer that individual, you can either go see the judge and deport it. I'm going to sit you in jail for 2 to 3 weeks or a month or two before you see the immigration judge, and we're going to deport you because you have no right to be in America. Or I can voluntarily return you to Mexico right now. And they would all say to a man and a woman, yeah, just get me back. So that's all he's doing. He's returning Mexican nationals who are the most deported people now into Mexico, and they're claiming that's deportation. He came into a Border Patrol meeting and they leaked this. This was about 2 months ago, where Mayorkas admitted to these Border Patrol agents that his release rate was at a minimum 85%. So every 10 people that he arrested, 8.5 of them be deported. I know that number to be around 96, 97%. So when Mayorkas says they're deporting, he's conflating numbers and he's outright lying. He's not a dumb man. This is a very, very strategic, intelligent man. So when he's telling you bold-faced lies, it's strategically manipulating words and definitions.
One of the other things that stood out to me, a question stood out to me that Mayorkas was asked. He said, Mr. Secretary, can you point to any authorities that were rolled back by Congress since Biden took office? Like, did we in Congress remove any tool from your tool belt when you came into power that was taken away from you to do your job? Watch this.
Could you speak to any authorities that Congress has removed from you or the president since taking office?
Congressman,
Has
mentioned
Congress removed any authorities from you or the president since you've taken office?
Congressman, the point
That's a yes or no question.
Congressman, the point that you make with respect to Border Patrol agents is exactly why
You're filibustering. I asked you a yes or no question.
Congressman, the point that you make.
Has Congress removed any authorities from you or the president since you've taken office?
Congressman, the point that you make with respect to Border
The answer
Patrol
is
agents.
no.
So he couldn't answer it at all, because the answer, as the congressman said, was no. There is no tool, right, that was removed from him. In fact, they did all the removing.
Yes, no tool has been removed. He was literally handed on a silver platter the most secure border in American history. We were within, people can't wrap their brain around this. If Trump would have been allowed to be president again, by meaning allowed being the votes were counted correctly, we were within 6 to 9 months of having a completely shut down border. People, they can't wrap their brain around that. We're averaging 7 to 15,000 arrests a day under President Trump. At the end of his term, we were averaging 500 to 600 arrests a day. That's nothing. That's like no one crossing. And everyone was being deported, like legal term deportation, not voluntary return. So Mayorkas is lying. Mayorkas has systematically gone through immigration policy and destroyed them. He's destroyed asylum. He's destroyed parole. He's created CBP1 app. He has flown in illegally in the dark of night hundreds of thousands, I believe it to be over millions, of illegal aliens into America and then did not put it in the arrest data. He is a traitor. Chip Roy came through and said it out loud in the congressional hearing last year. I repeat it constantly. This is the thing that maybe we can touch on. Watching, why it was so painful for me to watch this, Clayton, was I expected Democrats to fall in line and lie and cheat and steal. That's a given. But our side, the Republican side, which it's hard for me to say my side because they don't represent me. The Republicans are so impotent, so cowardly, so grossly negligent in their information. It's shocking. They stumble on their words. You get like 3 to 4 minutes to speak. I would come out with my guns blazing. I wouldn't ask him a question. I would just say, sir, you are a traitor. You have committed criminal acts against the body of America. And then I would systematically list all his crimes. It's not like I have to reach for him. I could just go down the line. You've allowed 10 million people into America. You've allowed another 10 to 15 million to cross illegally, undetected and abscond. You have allowed over 500,000 unaccompanied alien children to be sent out into America and be labor and sex trafficked. You have created the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history. You have abused parole. You have destroyed the asylum system. You have destroyed the United States Border Patrol and the border. 80% of the border is completely wide open. You've allowed almost 150,000 U.S. citizens to die of fentanyl and because the open border, and you've done nothing. I just came off the top of my head, Clayton, with that.
Right.
There's another 40, but they stumble and they're like, well, sir, and no. That's why we have a uniparty that is destroying America through the intentional destruction of the immigration system. And I believe that to the core of my soul.
Hallelujah. Yeah, absolutely. And you said that in about 30 seconds. You had another 4 minutes where you could have grilled him even with questions. So laying out all of his crimes, and they're sort of kissing his ass, and it's really it's horrible to watch. Of course, now we're facing the impeachment proceedings that'll move to the Senate. That'll probably die. Nothing will happen there. This guy is a traitor, and he of course should be impeached. We'll see if that actually happens. One of the things though that he said when he was asked, hey, do you need any more tools? Do you need any more resources to do your job? And I love this. He said, we need resources across all level of border enforcement. And I want you to touch on this. He said, Border Patrol agents, we don't have enough of them. We need way more Border Patrol agents. We need, he listed every single stage of the Border Patrol and everything that the Department of Homeland Security needs to secure the border. He said, we need those resources. We just don't have them. Was he telling the truth or was he lying again?
Well, he always tells half lies, right? Yes, we need more Border Patrol agents. At the height of my career, the height number was over 21,000. We're at 15,000 and going to 14,000 because no one wants to do the job. What are you going to do with those Border Patrol agents when you get them, Mayorkas? Are you going to keep making them have sandwiches for illegal aliens, take them to hospitals? 80% of the border, there's not a Border Patrol agent. There's no one guarding the border. So what are you going to do with them? And then my favorite thing of his is we need more detention beds, okay? Mayorkas, we have 41,000 beds across America. I called right before you had me on. I called just to verify. I spoke to a supervisor, one of the supervisors that runs the soft-sided facility in San Diego, 2,000 beds. And I said, hey, man, are you still running minimum people in those beds? Yeah, he goes, no one's in there. We just have a few people. He has 41,000 beds. None of them are filled. They're filled at minimum capacity. Why is that, Clayton? Because 97% of everyone that he arrests, he releases. He street releases. Nobody goes to detention facilities. It's a lie. The man lies constantly. And I go back to this every time I talk about Mayorkas. This man, to think that he's little meek, little man that doesn't know and he's just kind of bumping into the walls, you're making a dire mistake. This man was the youngest U.S. attorney in the history of America. Academic credentials out of the wazoo. He started in 2008 under Obama and rose all the way up to the Secretary of DHS. This man is accomplished. He's intelligent. He goes in front of Congress and just lies because he knows half the congressmen are for him, the other half of the congressmen are inept. And he just lies and he goes about his way. I'll nail this point home. We're 3.5 years into Joe Biden's term. He is 3.5 years as the Secretary of DHS. Everyone knows the border's completely wide open and we're being destroyed, and nothing's been done to him. Nothing. Where is the impeachment? Honestly, you just mentioned it. He was impeached, voted to be impeached in February of 14th of February. We're almost at the 14th of April. Nothing's been done. No one has stopped this man. So when you look at what he says, it's all a lie, but he does it with that incredible smirk on his face because he knows he's winning. And I will say this out loud as somebody that's intelligently honest and critical thinking. I applaud you, Mayorkas. As your adversary, I applaud you because you are winning. You are doing everything that you set out to do times 10. And I applaud you for that. I don't have to like you, but as your adversary, I have to look at you and go, yeah, you're winning, dude. I have to tip my hat to you.
Criminal mastermind at work, it seems. One of the other things he said was about their main priority is keeping America safe. His main priority is keeping America safe. And the main focus on these detentions is people who have a criminal record and are terrorists. That's where they're mostly focused. That is like their primary focus. When you heard that, what did you think?
Every time I hear that, I just want to scream, right? Because I know I was down on the border. I lived this. This is not a theoretical, I'm saying, well, this may be happening, Clayton. All of these people that are crossing the border, they are being vetted against national criminal databases in America. If they've never been to America, which is the vast majority of everyone crossing, they're going to vet clean because they've never been in America before. You see the absurdity of this? Unless they are on some terror watch list, they're not going to we call it red bar. Literally a red bar goes across their name on our computer. They're just clean. We're allowing people, look, you can Google this and just see it. Thousands, tens of thousands of IDs on the south side of the border. Why would you cross the border and discard all of your identification? Why? Because you don't want anybody to know who you are and you want a full, clean slate coming into America. We have no idea who's here. I'm telling you, Clayton, we're already over 200,000 special interest aliens / terrorists that have been arrested and released into America. 250,000 Chinese nationals, all single adult males. 250,000 Russians, mostly majority single adult males. We're going to have over 1 million Haitians cross by the time Joe Biden leaves office. We have already surpassed 1 million Venezuelans. You tell me, just on that data, what I told you. Do you feel safe? Do you actually believe America is safer today than it was when Trump was in office? And the answer is no, and everyone knows it.
And the FBI putting out an alert, of course, that the United States is about to be hit with a terrorist attack. This shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. I'll get you out of here on this, JJ, which is this revelation by President Biden about his now executive powers, right? So he tells Reuters yesterday in this that he's looking at what executive powers he has now, suddenly 3.5 years into his presidency, to shut down the border. What is he talking about? Is this just political opportunism in time for the election? Is this one of his demented moments? What did you make of that?
This is just to get him to the election. And he's already been documented to have discussions with the president of Mexico. Mexico's doing northern sweeps along their border just to bring the numbers down. But let's just look at the absurdity of what's happened. Let me just give you 2 numbers. First day in office, the first day, like he just sat down in the Oval Office. My first day, you think you get a drink, look around, have your family and go, oh my God, I'm the president. I'm going to do the best I can. First day in office, he signs 94 executive orders destroying everything Donald Trump created. 94 first day. In his first year, Clayton, he signed 296 executive orders on immigration, all negatively impacting America. Look it up. Just got to Google it. 94 the first day, 296 his first term.
Wow.
The guy is a demented old bag of skin. He was a disgusting human being prior to his dementia. But he has destroyed America. His people have destroyed America. If you want to, here's the magic wand, Joe Biden. You want to shut the border down? Take your first 94 executive orders, reverse them, do everything Trump did, and within days, the border will be shut down. Not years, within days, it will trickle to nothing. But you won't do it because this is the giant replacement theory of destroying America and replacing it with non-citizens that you can control. That's it. It's frustrating.
Maybe when Biden's looking into what executive powers he has, he'll just Google that. Maybe he'll stumble across that. Remember, my first day, I reversed all of this. I guess I can go back and do it all again. But he's not going to do any of that. It's startling. And we'll see next week what the Senate does with Mayorkas's impeachment. It's been punted there. We'll see. It's been delayed till next week. We'll see what happens if it's dead on arrival in the Senate. But we can't wait any longer for the United States border to be secured. JJ Carroll, great to see you as always. We encourage everyone, please read JJ's great book called Invaded. It's it's an Amazon bestseller. Who gives a rat's ass about the New York Times? It's an Amazon bestseller. Go there and buy it and support it and share it with people because we need to get this message out. JJ, great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, Clayton.
And Kate in our chat says, thank you, JJ, and the whole Redacted tribe for shedding light on all of this BS. Thank you, Kate, for watching. Yeah, this is, I think, the most important issue right now facing our, you're talking about an economy. We saw 50% higher gas prices under President Biden, prices of groceries up 25%. Driving up prices across the United States, Americans having to compete for jobs against illegal immigrants right now, illegal immigrants being handed phones, money, free passes, free housing, free food, when Americans are working their asses off right now. And the Congress is right now trying to debate sending another $60 billion to Ukraine.
Right.
Like, what world do we live in right now?
It's crazy. So Clayton and I, we're trying to think of what are the stories that appeal to our audience right now in an election year. It seems like Congress is not doing that. They don't care what you think. They don't care what you're engaged in. They're just going to do what they want. Yeah. So...
Yeah, you're worried about your safety. You're worried about your family. You're worried about being able to put food on your table.
Well, it's very clear. And we can see from the segments that do well here on Redacted and the segments that maybe don't. It is immigration. It is the economy. It is absolutely not involving ourselves in foreign wars. It's not that hard. Like, I could win an election if I had enough money, right? Those are the things, guys.
Isn't it sad that if you had enough money, because
backers. Yeah. And if the thing is, I don't want to care a lot what people think about me. It would ruin. I don't have that thick skin to, no. So.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about why I'm not running for election.
So, okay. Well, we got more news to get to tonight, but they do care about this. So we're going to talk, Senator Rand Paul is going to join us here in a few minutes on the show. We're also going to talk about the electric vehicle disaster. And boy, this continues. We're getting more data now on the electric vehicle scam in the United States. We're going to get there in a second. Plus, we're going to talk about hate crime legislation, which is sweeping the world right now, from Scotland to Canada to the United States, where these hate crime bills, the so-called hate, what does it mean? By the way, what does a hate crime mean? And when you just talk about it on social media, is that a hate crime? We're going to talk about all of that here in a second.
Because crime is already illegal, actually hurting people and stealing people. But they can't get to that if they're busy policing your feelings.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll get to that in a second here. So hold your horses. I know you're super excited to talk about it. Hold your horses. But first, we have a store, our Redacted store. It's built on Shopify. I don't know if you know that. If you go to redactedstore.com, you can get our hoodies, our mugs. Everything is right there. And I love when our viewers send us photos. They'll tag us on Twitter, and they've got their hoodies on, and their friends don't let friends watch mainstream media mugs and all of that. And I absolutely love it. It just warms my heart being able to go out there. Someone sent us their photo the other day of the I Will Not Comply hoodie, which was amazing. Anyway, it's all built on Shopify. So whether you're, starting a new business or you're expanding your business right now and you want to take your products online and be able to share it with the world, then you need Shopify. It's really fantastic. Shopify is a global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. I bet you wouldn't even know how many businesses are built using Shopify. From launching your online store to your first real life store stage, all the way to, oh my gosh, did we just hit like 1 million orders? Shopify is there to help you grow however you want. Whether you're delivering daily digests or serving up any kind of sensational scoops, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. And right now, you can get a nice discount just for signing up and giving it a try. Shopify will help you get set up right now by just going to shopify.com/redacted, all lowercase. You're going to get a chance to start using your store right now and get set up in just minutes. It's that easy to get set up. Everything you need to grow your business is very, very simple, all done with Shopify. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce platforms in the United States. And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, Brooklinen, millions of other entrepreneurs to every size across 175 countries. Anyway, sign up right now for only $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/redacted. That's all lowercase, shopify.com/redacted.
Well, the police, when they're busy policing hate crimes, they cannot focus on actual crimes, which means that societies with these policies will be less safe as a result. Who would have thought? Anyone who thought this through would have thought. Everyone that warned against these hate crime bills. Now, we have two cautionary tales about this. First of all, Scotland, which implemented a hate crime bill this month, and Canada, which will soon police even nice feelings. They're going to police your feelings now.
Thank
so
God.
If you think nicely about something that they want to demonize, they are going to make that against the law. Watch.
So tell me Canada isn't a communist country without telling me Canada isn't a communist country. I'll go first. Recently, some asshole on the NDP is introducing a new bill called C-372, also known as the Fossil Fuel Advertisement Act. And not only does it ban all advertising for our Canadian oil and gas companies, if you are a Canadian and you are caught speaking well of or promoting our oil and gas, could be a social media post, it could be a t-shirt with I love oil and gas on it, or a bumper sticker, anything like that, you can face up to 2 years in jail and a $500,000 fine. We all know that climate change is one of the biggest hoaxes out there, but this is our Canadian government.
Oh my God, Canada, you have lost. You know what I want to do right now?
They lost the plot, you guys.
I want to team here at Redacted. Can we please make a T-shirt that says "I love fossil fuels" and can we sell it in Canada?
I don't think we can.
Our Redacted store right now.
Well, right now we still can
Come
because
lock me
that
up,
bill has not
Canada,
passed.
you stupid! Oh my God, that's unbelievable.
Well,
that is like it's the point where like I can't even laugh at that. Like I'm just like mouth agape like.
I know. I'm like, wait, what? Like, that's got to be a joke. Are we watching like a Saturday Night Live sketch back when Saturday Night Live was funny? Like, right?
You can't have nice feelings about the oil and gas industry. And
can we talk, guys?
Can we talk, Canada? Can we just have a little conversation about how brain dead you've become up there in Canada?
Okay, so shall we look at it? Let's look at it. Here is the bill. She is not wrong. C-372, the bill concludes that fossil fuels are bad for us and contributes to climate change, which is not settled science. Don't let anybody tell you that it is. But Parliament is concluding that it is, and you should not promote it. Here's how they lay that out. They're saying it's prohibited for a person to promote fossil fuel, a fossil fuel related brand element, or the production of fossil fuel, except as authorized by these like specific their advertising to you rules. Now, it does say there's an exception for performance, like if you're in a play or whatever, or opinion. I don't understand how that, okay, but you can have an opinion, but you can't have an opinion. It's very contradictory. But if they so much...
You can have the opinion, but you can't share it.
I think so.
So just
it's
keep it to yourself,
that.
is what it sounds like.
So if they so much as suspect that you may be promoting fossil fuel and benefiting from it, you'll be in violation of the law. So as I was considering this today, I thought, okay, let's play this out. I have a YouTube channel. We do monetize it. So if I say here that fossil fuels saved my daughter's life on this channel and I am benefiting from ad revenue, according to this law, this might count, except this is my opinion and I am performing on my channel. Will the authoritarian Canadian government make that distinction? Who knows? And I will share with you that, in fact, my daughter was hospitalized 2 years ago with a scary bacterial pneumonia. I thought I'd share this with you. And I was a climate a-hole at the time. I was one of those who thought that, anyone who used a plastic bag was wrong or selfish or whatever. And I remember sitting there in the hospital with her and watching the nurses unwrap all of this plastic stuff. And we had to be rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. All of that, the fact that her antibiotics were available to her, shuttled there by fossil fuels. I remember thinking, wow, this changes my perspective. Like I have a completely different perspective about how, I was one of those, like, the world should shut down. We should all live off local things. It's just like, if I say that now, I very much appreciate that my family can live because of these fossil fuels. Is that a thought crime in Canada?
Yeah, it is. I mean, in the same way that if you read like Alex Epstein's book, Fossil Future, and he talks about how women will literally lose their children in hospitals in Africa and other spots if they don't have fossil fuels to power generators for ultrasound machines and other things as they're delivering babies, right?
Right.
Fossil fuels saves... We can call them fossil fuels. I know they don't come from fossils, right? But that they would be...
Oil and gas.
Oil and gas, right? That actually saves lives. So yes, that would be a problem. And by the way, just to give yourself some credit, you didn't think the world should shut down, but you were one of those people to think, oh, we should live off the land. We shouldn't be using like all these plastics and they would wind up in the oceans. And I think more to the point, you're more of like I've really thought about this a lot because I think we're more like anti-pollution people. Like you don't want to be out fishing with your son and there's like just a big pile of shit floating down the stream, like plastic, garbage, right? Just pick up after yourself.
Yeah.
Right. But it's not like, oh my God, this is contributing to climate change.
I don't know. I was kind of a hippie and I thought like, well, if the global economy shut down, we'd all be better off and live like the Indians and things like that. But then when you have an illness, it really changes your perspective. For instance, we have a family member who is a type 1 diabetic. They would just die without fossil fuels. They just would. So if I say, oh my God, thank goodness for the global economy and oil and gas that can ship medication, make medication in a factory and ship it to my family member, that completely changes how I feel about the global economy. That is a thought crime now. We're supposed to think 15-minute cities only. That's it, right?
Right. Someone says, was she one of those people that you thought you could just hollow out a bone for a straw?
Yeah, I don't know. You just don't think these things through. You think that this is how I'm supposed to behave. This is what virtue is. I should just behave this way. And then when you sit down and start to think, well, how are EVs powered? Is that worse for the environment? When you ask those questions,
paper straw?
it starts
Wait a minute, hold on. Paper straws are supposed to be better than plastics? Oh, no, they're not actually. It's actually far worse with the chemicals as we've documented here on the show. But of course, they spew all of this garbage on top of you. We were just traveling in France and like everything is now paper. And it's like that crappy paper lids that dissolve in your mouth. And it's like this so awful. Hopefully France will wake up and realize they've been sold a bill of goods and they'll go back to using plastics again.
Or something.
Yeah. Anyway.
It kind of reminds me of that. Sorry, but it kind of reminds me of that of the kid from Into the Wild. What was it, like Christopher McCandless or whatever the guy?
McCandless.
Yeah, McCandless. Yeah. Where like it's just like where you have this glorified idea of like how the world can be and just walking out into nature, and it's like it wasn't until he got out there that you realized like he didn't have any of the infrastructure for it.
Right. Like he's like, I'm going to kill a moose. Now, what do I do with it? Oh, it's going to be eaten by bugs. What do I do? And now there's like a moose sitting there collecting flies and I can't eat it because it's rotten and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to sleep in a bus and I'm going to die. Yeah, exactly. Right. You get all like romantic about the idea of all of it. And then it's, you realize, no, we need this. There's a reason why civilization advances. As someone in the chat just said, fossil fuels equals freedom, but you can't say this in Canada. Anyway, I know we're on a fun.
Oh yeah. You better not say that in Canada.
Go ahead, David.
And I just want to say, like, that's why we get so skeptical about everything, because it's like I was on the CFL bandwagon, the green bandwagon, the protect the environment bandwagon. I've been on all these. I was on the Democratic bandwagon because I'm like, we got to help more people, and it's like you keep getting, it all ends up being proved false, and so it's like then when you hear something new, you're like, no, I'm not buying it this time. Right. So I think that's why we're such skeptics on this show.
Yeah, that's why we question everything on this show, and that's a good place to be, right? I mean, we should all be questioning and doing our own research, which, the left doesn't want you to do. They don't want you to do your own research, but I think that's important. And when you see these types of stories popping up, like like I said, there was a story. I mean, don't go off on a tangent on this for a second, but there was a story like these Wall Street.
I'm going on a tangent. You don't do it.
All right, I'm going to go on a tangent myself. But there's these stupid stories that pop up like in the Wall Street Journal from time to time, where it's like there's a new trend where married couples are sleeping in separate beds to save their marriage because maybe one person snores, and it's the best thing that's ever done for our marriage. It's like, wait a second, what's really the story here? Like, they don't want people, like spouses sleeping together. They don't want them to procreate. Like I go like 3 levels deeper now on these stories when I see these garbage stories like in the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah,
they don't want
it's called a sleep divorce.
They don't want you to have They don't want you to have a family. They don't want you to be close. It's like these leftist
like how
rags.
to lose a guy in 10 days.
Yeah, that kind of crap. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Where was I?
Canada is terrible.
So thought crime for having nice feelings about fossil fuel. Okay. Well, who will police that thought crime then in Canada? Actual police? Then they cannot police actual crime because they're busy worrying about your nice feelings about fossil fuel or your hate crimes about groups that they want to protect. This is the case in Scotland. The police now are totally overwhelmed with hate crime that they cannot solve actual crimes. In fact, they're solving fewer and fewer of those because they're busy with the hate crime law. So this law makes hate crime a crime. And here is what Scottish police are reporting, that in the first week that this bill went into effect, police say they have received over 8,000 reports and they simply cannot cope. If this keeps up, they say they would have more hate crimes at the end of the year than actual crimes. Watch how this math is playing out, that if this replicates through the whole year, 8,000 hate crime reports in a year, then that would surpass the entire total of 416,000 crimes reported to the police. That would mean that hate crimes would overtake overall crime within 36 weeks or by the autumn and dwarf the annual 58,000 reported assaults, the most common offense in Scotland, by a factor of 10. So 10 more hate crimes than assaults. Now, this person, David Threadgood, who is the chairman of the Scottish Police Federation, says Scotland police have gone public and said that on every occasion, reports of hate crime will be investigated. So this creates a situation where we simply cannot cope at the moment. Officers have been brought back to do overtime shifts, and the management of that is simply unsustainable. So you're paying your officers time and a half when someone says, my neighbor did a hate crime to me, they don't like me because I'm black, and they then put their trash over the line, and that's a hate crime, or what have you. Doesn't matter what it is because the bill ill defines it. Also, the bill it defends hate crimes against transgender people. So a man masquerading as a woman can report a hate crime, but an actual woman is not a protected group. So that's obviously problematic. Now, the data is showing that because these hate crimes are going to be more heavily policed, it will make the existing backlog of crimes not solved in Scotland even worse. And so these things continue to go unsolved and untaken care of. For instance, violent offenses, fraud, and rape. Here are how many crimes and the types of crimes Scotland police have been unable to solve since 2010. They're making some headway. The blue at the top shows that they have been able to solve things like robbery, vandalism, or car theft. But how long now that they have to respond to everyone's feelings? But look how far behind they are on fraud, shoplifting, sexual assault, weapons, threatening behavior, theft of a vehicle, assault, rape, burglary. You can't get those things taken care of by the police in Scotland. They're busy. They're on the phone policing hate crimes. David Threadgold, chairman of the Scottish Police Federation, he said that people are misusing this for a personal vendetta, says that this has been weaponized for, personal and political vendettas, such as how many people called in J.K. Rowling. The bottom line, he says, is should this demand remain, the police service will have to deal with it, but will clearly impact all other areas of policing. Now, Neil Oliver, Scottish YouTuber and friend of the show, points out that this will inspire people to tell on their neighbors, and this puts us squarely, you guys, this is me saying this, in 1984 territory.
Anyone and everyone with an axe to grind against an enemy or against an opponent, you'll get mischief. People just determined to cause trouble for their neighbours or for people that they have a beef with by accusing them of having stirred up hatred.
Well, that is exactly what's happening, and we're just waiting to find out who will be punished and to what extent. And it's just a matter of time when someone is punished for something that the rest of us do not think is a hate crime. But last week, J.K. Rowling published a series of tweets about men posing as women who had been violent offenders and identified as transgender. The Scottish police said they are not going to pursue that as a hate crime. She's not in trouble for it. So at least that provides some kind of protection for regular people who want to say that when they see a man, that's a man. And now this will all happen in the state of Washington. We talked about this last week because Washington did pass Senate Bill 5427. It says it supports people who have been targeted or affected by hate crimes and bias incidents. We pointed out this bias incidents. This is a new thing, not just a hate crime, but it means a person's hostile expression of animus towards another person relating to the other person's actual or perceived characteristics. So it doesn't even have to be something real. When we spoke about this last week, Philip pointed out that expression of hostile or animus could be honking at someone in traffic, and that person can report, well, they honked at me because I have dark skin, or because I'm a woman, or because I'm a trans person, right? You can see how bias incident takes this even one step further, and it doesn't. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that's going to make me not want to hold a door for anyone anymore, because I already got looked at and told off for holding a door at a grocery store one time by a girl. She's like, I don't need your help, thank you. So
Really?
now I'm like, I'm going to have to be that asshole. Yeah, I did.
I wasn't holding the door. I was just giving you the middle finger.
That was, in fact, a bias incident, because you perceived that she was a woman, and that was a gentlemanly thing to do.
But in the age of feminism,
it was a positive bias, but you showed a bias, right? And
yeah,
sure.
Well, I made it perfectly clear. I said, I'm not holding the door because you're a girl. I'm holding the door because I'm not an asshole. That's
right, because you're a person.
You're a human being.
I'd hold it for a man,
God.
a monkey, whatever.
Well, you could make the case, because you were not hostile or animus. You could make the case that she was biased against you because she thought you were a toxic white male.
Philip,
Right,
before
so then there we would go back and forth in court, like he said, she said. Like,
right.
I'm pretty sure that what this law, as much as you'd like to think it does not apply to this guy, because white male.
Right.
That is not who they wrote this law for.
No,
you're like
you have
a
no
universal
social
punching
power.
bag.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to feel bad about your whiteness. That's what you got to do. Philip, you were telling us before the show that you were in a class in college, in a feminist class. You took a 400 level feminist class, and you were the only
a 400 level feminist theory class.
And you were the only male in that entire class. Did you attempt to like hold a door for any of the feminists in the class, or?
I was usually the first one to the class, and not bragging or tooting my own horn or anything like that, but I was also usually the one that was most prepared, because I think I was the only one doing the reading material.
Yeah.
So I had to check all those boxes and make sure there was, because that's not the place you want any kind of misogyny to show up. You're going to get trampled.
You're going to get kicked in the balls. Yeah.
So I was on my best behavior.
Yeah, but anything that, even being more prepared than the other women, can be considered a bias incident, right? You're exerting your white male privilege by showing up and being prepared.
Yeah.
You could make the point.
You're a racist. You're bias privilege. Oh my God.
How dare you do that? Because, you don't know. Every woman in that class could have triplets at home that she is actively nursing and can't study like you do. This is how I'm just playing out the.
God.
Yeah.
That's
Can you imagine the greatest
I was the
generation
one
coming
that went
back
to
from
see-
World War II and thinking like, this is what they would have to come home to? Like
Right.
seeing what has become of their society after. Oh my God.
What were you going to say, Philip?
I was just going to say I was also the only one in that class that drove like an hour and a half to see bell hooks at a seminar. So I'm just saying.
Oh. That's pretty cool. I read bell hooks books as well. Lowercase bell hooks. Yes, I know who you're talking about.
Well, we've got more news to get to here on your Wednesday. Senator Rand Paul is going to be joining us here in moments, and we're going to talk about what is going on with Dr. Fauci because, my gosh, there is a new investigation that has just unfolded, and Dr. Fauci has been lying. I know this is going to come as a shock to you, but Senator Rand Paul's investigation is now found, and multiple agencies knew about and were coordinating with the Wuhan lab to launch a coronavirus-like virus in 2018. So we're going to talk to the senator about that in a second. But first,
I hadn't finished my segment.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You're just going to do that?
I thought you were done.
No.
All right.
Should I finish my segment or should I not
Go ahead.
do that?
Okay.
Okay. Well, I
thought
just
you were
wanted to add, before we're done with all of these laws about hate laws and getting your feelings hurt and all of that, is I think that we should all think about what kind of society then we will be left with. Because the thing the most important, the thing that this teaches us is that your feelings are the most important thing. This is something that Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt call one of the great myths of modern life, that you are fragile, your feelings are true, and you should not be expected to handle anything hard. Now, your government is sending you that message. You cannot handle having your feelings hurt. You need us to solve it. You should never handle any adversity. This is their great book, which I would like to recommend if you haven't already read it, The Coddling of the American Mind, where they advocate for a population that is anti-fragile. That means we get stronger every time we experience hardship, like a grapevine or a mussel. But now Scotland, the land of the people who inspired each other to throw off the English in the strength of William Wallace, will be the land of the fragile. If Mel Gibson now were to yell freedom while he was playing that character, it would scare the Scots and they would call the police and say, that made me very anxious. That was a bias incident, right? And so all of this points to the fact that politicians do not actually protect the most vulnerable. If they did, they wouldn't do things like, letting poor people of color live in dangerous neighborhoods, crime-ridden societies where criminals are not prosecuted. They don't care about real victims. They care about turning you into a fake victim and a fragile fake victim. So that's what we get when we elect politicians who do this. Now I'm done, darling.
Now you're done. Well, as a gentleman, and I can say I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
Okay.
See?
Well, it's a good thing you guys don't live in Washington State. You could be in trouble right now, Clayton.
Someone in the chat says that's a hate crime.
That was a bias incident.
Believe it or not, right to jail.
You just didn't. She's a woman. We're tired of hearing her talk.
She's a woman, and you just talked all over. That's a hate crime. Yeah, that's a hate crime. You're going to jail in Canada or any other place, crying out loud.
I'm done with this toxic white male masculine.
Yes,
I can't cut Clayton's mic because that would be a hate crime because Natalie's on the same button, and so it would be cutting Natalie's mic also. Yeah. So it would be like, would that just be a net zero? Like if I commit a hate crime and punish a hate crime at the same time.
It's a microaggression.
I think I'm good.
You hit a button, that's a microaggression. Yeah, I can't keep track of it all. Oh, for crying out loud. What a world we live in. Yeah, that's fascinating. I love the idea that, if Mel Gibson were to yell freedom to play William Wallace, they would all be scared about it. They would say, that's a
microaggression. You
Right.
can't remind us of our aggressive past because we can't be that now. Please don't upset us.
Crazy. Let us know your thoughts on this. Freedom in the chat below. We've lost our collective marbles right now. Okay, yes. Senator Rand Paul is going to be joining us here in moments to talk about Dr. Fauci and, of course, this new investigation and why is Dr. Fauci still walking free? Like, why is he still allowed to be outside of bars right now, not behind bars? We're going to ask Senator Paul
and probably
about
still
that.
getting paid.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, handsomely, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends over at Bank on Yourself, because you are being lied to with advertisement about your retirement savings. If you do a little bit of research on the 401k or the IRA, you realize that those are mediocre investments at best. And they are a way for you to partner with the government to invest in a stock market. In fact, they say that risking your life savings in the Wall Street casino is a secure investment, but studies show that the average American who follows that advice will outlive their savings by at least 10 years. But there is a better way. Bank on Yourself will help you grow and protect your hard-earned money. It's the retirement plan alternative that has never had a losing year in over 160 years. All it takes is for you to do a little bit of studying. Just take the time, say, okay, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to figure out how this works in my family. And if it works for me, you can go to bankonyourself.com/redacted and learn that with this type of investment, you are in control. You get access to your money for any purpose with no questions asked and without government penalties or restrictions on how much income you can take or when you can take it. Try doing that with your IRA or your 401k. You cannot. It's built-in inflation protection, and your money is guaranteed to grow by a larger dollar amount every single year in both good times and bad, plus the peace of mind, because you are not dependent on geopolitics for how your retirement account performs. So please check it out. Take the time, set aside some time to consider this for your family. Go to bankonyourself.com/redacted. Again, if you want guaranteed, predictable annual growth, control of your money, and tax-free retirement income, go to bankonyourself.com/redacted. You'll get a free report from the proven retirement plan alternative that banks and Wall Street doesn't want you to know about. So again, bankonyourself.com/redacted.
Well, stop me if you've heard this before. Dr. Fauci has been caught lying once again about COVID. According to Senator Rand Paul's own investigation, Fauci's NIH lab was a partner with Wuhan to engineer a highly transmissible coronavirus back in 2018, 2 years before the so-called pandemic. But it gets even worse than that, because Senator Rand Paul joins us now to break all of this down for us. Senator, good to see you again. Welcome back here to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So you write in a new opinion piece out this week based on your investigation that you've uncovered that officials from 15 different federal agencies back in 2018 knew that the Wuhan lab was trying to create a coronavirus just like COVID-19, and they didn't warn the American people or anyone about it. They kept totally silent about it. Why didn't they say a word to anyone?
Yeah, this is, it boggles the mind, the level of potentially conspiracy or potentially cover up on this. We only know about this research proposal at all because a whistleblower who is a lieutenant colonel in the Marines who reported it to his superiors and to the Inspector General and revealed this a couple of years ago, that there was a grant that the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the University of North Carolina, Dr. Barrick, and Peter Daszak at EcoHealth, they all wanted to get together and create a virus, like you said, coronavirus, with a special cleavage site to make it more infectious in humans. This is called a furin cleavage site. Doesn't exist in nature. So they wanted money from our government, the Chinese lab, UNC, Peter Daszak. They wanted money from us to create this virus. Now, ultimately, the grant was turned down, but we didn't know anything about the proposal. And this was a big deal proposal, not just to DARPA. They then presented it to 15 other agencies to ask money to do this. And I was just a few minutes ago in a committee hearing with Samantha Power from USAID, and I asked her this question. And I acknowledge that in 2018, this might not have seen as much of a big deal that this grant was turned down. But come 2020, when you see the structure of the COVID-19, there should have been this aha moment. Oh, I remember 2 years ago, this Chinese lab was asking to do something very similar. And now the virus looks exactly like what they were proposing to do. The aha moment should have been, by all of the members of these agencies, anybody in DARPA, should have been, we need to let the president know. We need to let infectious disease, we need to let Anthony Fauci know that this happened, because now this is direct evidence that this came from the lab, that it didn't come from animals. And the big differences about a lab-created virus versus an animal virus is lab-created viruses are pre-adapted to infect humans. Animal viruses can infect humans, but they don't do it very well because they're adapted and evolved to infect animals. And so they have to change in evolution to infect humans. Whereas a laboratory adapted virus like COVID-19 immediately became infectious across the world in a matter of days, really.
And to roll it out and take it into some sort of open cave environment where you're going to test it on bats. And I mean, call me cynical, but I mean, I think they knew what was going to happen with this, right? I mean, it seems to me that they knew what was going to happen when you're going to roll these out in some open cave environments to test it on bats, which have the same makeup, physiology as human beings.
Yeah. And the thing is about the whole idea of doing this is there's been a debate going on in the scientific community really for a decade or more between a whole group of very sincere and established scientists who believe that this kind of research is too dangerous to perform. This gain of function research really should be severely regulated and really most of the time shouldn't be acted on at all. Because you're right, what they're doing is they're going to a cave in a remote part of China, hundreds of feet underground, to try to find viruses that really don't interact with man because man's not down in the bottom of these caves. It would be one thing to investigate the people who live in the province near the cave to see if they're becoming infected with viruses. That's a reasonable sort of surveillance project. But to get the viruses deep in this remote cave, take them back to a city of 15 million, Wuhan, and then replicate the viruses and or manipulate and change the virus to see if you can make it even more infectious in humans is really something that honest, reasonable people think is crazy. And you know, Kevin Esvelt's a professor at MIT. He says it's a risk or a gamble that civilization shouldn't be taking. He discusses it the same way he discusses nuclear weapons. That the same way we're worried about nuclear proliferation, we're worried we have nuclear arms treaties with other countries, that we need to be treating viruses the same way we would actually treat nuclear arms negotiations.
I mean, to me, this rises to the level of, you know, we think about conspiracy theories, but to me, there's where there's smoke, there's fire here. And so the Department of Defense steps back from this, right? They step back from this gain of function research piece of this, but these other agencies are aware of it. And then they sort of the Department of Defense then gets involved sort of through a proxy, like sort of an end around, because they know that they could potentially use this. I mean, to most of our viewers watching right now.
And the interesting thing about this proposal, this original proposal to create this virus, not only was NIH briefed on this, not only was NIAID, Fauci's division of NIH, briefed on this, they actually were part of the initial proposal. They proposed using a lab, the Rocky Mountain Lab, which is owned by the NIAID, to be part of creating this virus. So they were a part of the proposal, not just privy to a presentation about the proposal, they actually were part of the initial proposal. Now, later on, the evidence we have doesn't show the NIH or NIAID in this, but we now know that in the initial stages, they were part of this, and we want to know who these people were. All of their names are redacted. We know that they met. We know that Peter Daszak from EcoHealth talked to 15 different agencies in a presentation. I asked Samantha Power from USAID today, will you give us the name of the person who met there so they can be interviewed? Because they might not have realized in 2018 how dangerous this was or what was going to happen. But once the pandemic occurs and everybody sees that this virus is a coronavirus with a furin cleavage site, anybody that was privy to the knowledge that the Chinese lab wanted to create a coronavirus with the furin cleavage site should have been coming forward, and they should have been sounding the alarm. Instead, it's the opposite. Everybody's very quiet, and most of these records are sealed, and they will not give them to us, and they're redacted. We have one 250-page document from NIH that is a briefing for Tony Fauci to know more about what all they've been doing with coronavirus. That's completely redacted, 100% redacted, and they won't give it to us.
And they won't give it to, so 15 agencies, these individuals who were there at that presentation, can you subpoena this information? Is Congress going to subpoena this?
We've sent them all letters. The only way I could subpoena them is I would have to be in the majority. So in the Senate, we're in the minority. I don't have subpoena power. We ask all the time, and we occasionally get the Democrat chairman to sign requests for records, but we have some requests for records that are over a year old that were signed by the Democrat chairman and myself as a ranking Republican and have still been ignored. So we want to know if there was a meeting to deliberate over whether this was gain of function. Anthony Fauci says, my experts have all seen this. This is not gain of function. Well, give us the deliberations of your experts. We want to see the discussion over why this wasn't gain of function. They won't give us that. And this is a resistance, I think, unparalleled. This is all not classified. This is not anything, none of this is classified. And yet we can't get the information, and then we have this resistance. I think the only way we're going to get it is with the new administration. If there were a Republican administration, I believe that we will get answers to this. But it does make a difference because, for example, in the Trump administration, the head of the FDA is a guy who's now on the board of Pfizer. And so I think he is conflicted and has a conflict of interest. We have to hope that if there is another Trump administration, that the people who will be appointed will actually be people who want sunlight and transparency and to make sure that this never happens again.
Do we know, forgive me if I missed this, but do we know the 15 agencies? Do we know the names of the 15?
We've got a list of the 15 agencies. They include the NIH, NIAID, so that's sort of one agency or two, depending on you count it, representatives from the Army, representatives from the Navy, representatives from different labs, USAID, CDC, I mean, you name it. You name the agency, and they were probably in this meeting. And they all need to have a discussion. We need to know why they didn't come forward with this knowledge and why to this day they're still hiding and not revealing documents to us.
I mean, it seems like a much bigger plan at play here that we're not being told about, because in 2021, you'll recall the CIA, of course, released their full report saying, we don't know where COVID came from. We don't know if it came from Wuhan. We don't have any evidence of that. They released that, that big declassified report. And then last year, of course, we learned through CIA whistleblowers that the CIA tried to bribe its COVID investigative analysts in order to hide their findings from that it did leak from a lab. Was the CIA one of these agencies?
We've met with they were not listed as one of these agencies, but we've met with the whistleblower for the CIA. And in discussions with him, he tells us that the vote from the science committee, a science committee was assigned the question, did the virus come from animals or could it have come from the lab? He tells us that the Science Commission voted 6-1 that it came from the lab. And then they were overridden by superiors at the CIA, that higher ups made the decision to override the scientists. We also know that the FBI did vote, and the FBI's conclusion that is public now is that it came from the lab. And also the Department of Energy, which has more scientists than any other agency up here probably, they also concluded that it came from the lab. But we now know that the scientists at the CIA also thought it came from the lab, but were overruled by superiors. There's also much talk and scuttlebutt of Anthony Fauci having repeated meetings that may or may not be on the visitor logs at the CIA. So after 9/11, Anthony Fauci became much bigger than just sort of scientific research. He became in charge of biological weapons, biomedical weapons. He became in charge of so much that his budget went through the roof. But we think that there is a close alliance between him and our intelligence agencies, and we think that we're at the tip of the iceberg as to what will finally be revealed if we're ever given access to all of this.
You know, President Trump back in 2020 said that the virus he's seen the evidence that the virus came from the Wuhan lab, and then when he was asked about this, he said, quote, I can't tell you that. Like, did he see the evidence? What was this? Have you talked to the president about what evidence he may have seen that convinced him at the time that it was from the lab?
I haven't talked to the president specifically about that, but I believe that the evidence he was pointing towards is what Pompeo declassified in January of 2021. So as the Trump administration is leaving, Pompeo declassifies, and these were several cables from Wuhan saying that the lab was not safe and that they weren't up to standards, but also it included some source, and I'm not sure who the source is, that 3 scientists that worked for Dr. Shi at the lab doing the gain of function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, that 3 of the scientists became sick in November 2019. And, you know, if the first people getting sick work in the lab with coronaviruses, creating gain of function coronaviruses, you know, that's pretty much a done deal. We actually now know their names as well. The Pompeo report said 3 scientists from the Wuhan Institute were sick in November, and they say with COVID-like symptoms, because obviously the Chinese, they didn't have a test at that time because it was just, they were the first people to get sick, and they would have tested negative for the first test from SARS-1 from 2003. That would be a negative test, but they have a virus of unknown origin or a pneumonia of unknown origin, so everybody knows what they've got. They've got something that grew out of the lab. They revealed the 3 people, but then later on, I think Michael Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi in an article about 6 months ago revealed the names. So we actually know the names. One of them was Ben Hu, H-U, and he was one of the assistants, and he's sort of like the protege of Dr. Zengli, or Dr. Shi Zengli. So we do know that that happened. I think that's what Trump was probably referring to, is that he knew that knowledge, and then it was revealed to the public from Pompeo declassifying it. But this is an argument for declassifying most things. There's no reason. What should be classified, and this is what people don't get, what should be classified is how you got information. You know, if you're a spy and you live in Beijing, we don't want to reveal your name or something. So however we got the information, or whether we eavesdrop from satellites or communications, how we get it should be secrets. Those are real secrets. But most of the time, I'd say 99% of the time, the information is something the public should know so we can make decisions. And it is a big deal. If the virus came from a lab in Wuhan, it means that labs that do this kind of research in the U.S. could also have the same type of accident. There are labs around the world doing this. It means that if we want to stop another pandemic from occurring, we have to seriously reassess what kind of research we're doing and what kind of research particularly the taxpayer is supporting.
I'll get you out of here on this, Senator, which is our viewers. I know I'm going to hear from them saying, why is Dr. Fauci not indicted? Why is he still walking free? How is it possible that you know, Peter Daszak, these guys, how are they still walking free? How is Dr. Fauci not behind
I hear
bars?
the same. I hear the same thing. I jokingly say when I return home from Washington each week, my wife greets me at the door, not with a hug or a kiss, but why the hell is Anthony Fauci not in jail yet? So people are frustrated, but they have to understand, I don't control the judicial system. If I were the Attorney General, if this was a Republican administration and I were the Attorney General, yes, I would have prosecuted Anthony Fauci for a felony for lying to Congress. I've sent 2 referral letters. It's not that I'm not trying. I sent 2 criminal referral letters to the Attorney General. I've sent another one this week, because we discovered that in his testimony before the Help Committee in 2022, he said that he had no evidence and had never heard of this diffuse grant, the grant to create the virus in 2018. He said, never heard of it. But we now know that not only was his agency briefed on this, we know that his agency was part of the grant initially. So I don't see how he can have no knowledge of it. And I'll bet you if we were to get his preparatory material that they gave him when they were preparing him for all the knowledge of NIH and NIAID's interaction with Wuhan, it may be in some of that information that they prepped him on, oh, well, you remember we were briefed on the diffuse thing. If that comes forward, you can see how then he's caught in a lie that he can't probably extricate himself from. But they're fighting tooth and nail, and I'm looking for a promise from the next president that this will all be revealed. And that's a big deal for me. As far as me getting enthusiastically behind the Trump campaign is, I want to know, is a new President Trump going to appoint people who are not apologists for the pharmaceutical industry, but are actually hardcore enough to say, we're going to expose the truth. Every document in NIH, every document in HHS, everything from NIAID will be revealed, and that Congress will have full and complete access to that. That would help to get me more on board with being more enthusiastic about a second Trump administration.
Yeah, you and me both. I think we hope that the swamp doesn't get filled back up, and in fact is adversarial in that regard, going after these people. Senator Rand Paul, great to see you. Thank you so much. Keep up the great work as always.
Thanks. Yep. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Senator. We appreciate it.
No nonsense. That guy.
Yeah,
the dog with a bone.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's not going to give up on that. And thankfully, because no one else is really looking into it. So thank you so much for that. And it's amazing. You can have these subpoenas out there. You can have these requests for subpoenas, and Congress is just like sitting on them, not doing anything about them, like not fulfilling them. It's unbelievable. We got more news to get to here in a moment, but we do have some really fantastic news that we're just seeing now, of course, coming in and getting all of the pieces of this, hearing from members of Congress on this, that it looks like the FISA bill is dead. A number of Republican members of Congress stood the line, held the line, and voted no on the extension of the FISA warrant,
which would let them spy on us continuously, which is war power they granted themselves that never gave back.
Right.
So that's amazing.
Yeah, I just want to go through some of the names here. So Anna Paulina Luna, of course, Congresswoman, she said, I voted no on FISA as written. There was no warrant requirement to spy on Americans. It also created a carve-out for members of Congress to be notified by the FBI. I won't be manipulated into voting to infringe on civil liberties. Of course, Congressman Massey as well. But I just want to go through the list of who we know right now, at least, who voted no on this. So you can say their names, because these are patriots who held the line on this. You had Senator Massey, Congressman Massey, Congressman Biggs, Bishop, Boebert, Burchett, Cloud, Crane, Matt Gaetz, Good, Gosar, Higgins, Luna, Mace, Mills, Norman, Perry, Rosedale, Roy, Stube, and we know Marjorie Taylor Greene as well. So again, this is I don't have the full voting list right now, but the FISA bill has been stopped from proceeding to the U.S. House floor on this. So for a full vote. So if that surveillance law fails to advance now in the House, the way it stands under this procedural context before it comes to the full House floor. So anyway, Congressman Massey gave a really impassioned speech just a short time ago on the floor as well on this. So again, coming out of committee, it's stopped right now, the FISA bill. This is fantastic. I mean, we've talked to former FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin extensively about this. You can do a deep dive interview that I have with him here on the channel. Watch that, because he goes in depth on how dastardly this is and how the FBI has been using this foreign sort of net to be able to capture and then go after Americans and drum up things on Americans then in order to go after them for other, it's unbelievable how they're being able to use this to go around the justice system and capturing Americans. It's incredibly troubling. So
no, in the chat, it's not the Pfizer bill. It's the FISA bill.
FISA. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act.
Which they don't use to survey foreign people. They use to survey you, domestic people.
So anyway, thank you to those patriots for standing up for this. And we hope to have Congressman Massey here on the show. Hopefully he'll be joining us. That would be great to get his take on this as well.
We have a super chat says they're still going to find a way around FISA. Yes, they were doing it before there was a law. That's why Edward Snowden no longer lives in the United States. This is true, but it's a big speed bump. Let's applaud that our leaders see it and voted against it, or at least some did.
And they're not being fooled by it. I mean, they had to try to have this carve out in there over the past few days for members of Congress. And, you had these smart members of Congress who are calling it out, saying, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Just give this carve in it. We're not going to fall for it. And I love Pooch in our chat says, just the fact that Redacted is reporting on these topics means we are winning. Let's go Redacted. Yeah, let's go to you guys. You guys called your members of Congress. You guys, made your voices heard. This is the power of independent media right now. People who are watching CNN and all these other channels, they're not doing that. So we need the power of independent journalism right now to stop this stuff from happening. I think this is a sign of the power of that, and we are winning.
Sure.
So anyway.
More winning. All right. Well, electric vehicles are not winning. We're going to talk about that coming up here in the show. How much we have got from that infrastructure bill where all of our tax money went into electric vehicles. What do we get for it? We're going to show you the numbers. It's going to make you pee your pants, maybe. Well, I don't know if you have a full bladder or not, but first.
I don't want to pee my pants.
Don't pee your pants. Wear a diaper. You can wear a diaper.
You can do it if you want to.
Like one of the astronauts. But let's talk about this. I don't want you to pee your pants over this, because this is some fantastic coffee, and I really can't stand bad coffee, which is why I'm so excited to tell you about our friends over at 1775 Coffee Company. In 1775, of course, the world awakened to a new era. And now 1775 Coffee Company is bringing you a coffee that embodies that revolutionary spirit, crafted with passion and precision. Their beans are ethically, exclusively sourced from the finest coffee farms in Bolivia. 1775's Coffee Farms to Cup journey ensures the highest quality, authenticity, sustainability from start to finish. It's delicious. They take pride in offering customers a truly exceptional cup of coffee with their premium coffee coffee collection delivered right to your door. And they've joined forces with our friends at Rumble in defense of one of our most fundamental rights, freedom of speech. So they stand with Rumble. They stand with freedom of speech. Hallelujah. Thank you. We need more companies like this when they sponsor shows like Redacted. You know, you have a lot of advertisers out there that say, no, they don't want to be a part of what we cover here on our show. They want to stand with, you know, channels like CNN and MSNBC, and they want to stand in the sort of the Bud Light crowd and all of that and the Planet Fitness. Here's a company, if you're thinking about ordering coffee for a gift, Father's Day is coming up, maybe a subscription, get some coffee delivered for your father in the family or a man in your family delivered right to your door. You get 10% off. Go to 1775coffee.com/redacted. If you're going to drink coffee anyway, why not drink something that stands for something, and a company that actually stands for free speech and independent journalism. So thanks for sponsoring our show, 1775 Coffee. You guys rock. 10% off for our viewers. 1775coffee.com/redacted. Go order a bag. Give it a try and tell them we sent you. Thank you guys. We really appreciate it. Much love to you guys.
Well, think about all the money and resources that have gone into promoting electric vehicles. So all of your tax dollars, all of the advertising, all the bloviating from the White House, not to mention what of your tax money from the infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act went into promoting electric vehicles. Well, what did we get for it? For all of that, what did we get? Well, according to a new report, we got a whole 3%. Wah, wah. 3%.
Wow, that's a fast button. Way to go.
Like it. A whole 3% more Americans own EVs this year than did last year. So let's take a look at the numbers. This is just about ownership. So from last year, the percent that currently own an EV was 4%. And this year we are up to 7%, you guys. Whoop-de-doo. Not only that, but look at how many people would not buy an electric vehicle. Last year, 41% said, nope, don't want that. This year, 48%, so almost half are saying, yeah, no, not going to consider it. Would consider it, not going to consider it. Now, recall that Joe Biden's infrastructure bill allocated $7.5 billion tax dollars for more EV stations and innovation. The Inflation Reduction Act gave car makers incentives to push EVs, and they still are sitting on the lot. So for all of this, remember this, last year and last November, a group of dealers from about 4,000 car dealerships across the country sent this letter begging President Biden to tap the brakes on electric vehicle mandates because the EVs are just sitting there. Remember, this dealer, Tom Maioli, told this to CNBC, explaining that they just have a pileup of inventory.
And this is basically the voice of the consumer. This is not the dealer. This is the voice of the consumer. And what's happening is the manufacturer is being forced to produce these EVs. They're shipping them to the dealerships, and they're backing up on the lots. You know, our average day supply pre-COVID was 60 to 90 days supply of inventory. During COVID, it was less than 30 because of the supply chain issues. We're now backed up to 12 months with EVs. Consumers don't want them. They're not buying them. We have up to $15,000 in rebates from the manufacturer and $7,500 tax credits. We're talking $22,500.
Okay. So the host then goes on to say that a brand new electric F-150 truck with only 25 miles on it was marked down to $7,000. That's a $20,000 discount. And even then, they couldn't sell it. Now, he makes the distinction and says it's not Tesla. Tesla is a status purchase, and it's selling just fine. And so let's keep that in mind when we look at the socioeconomic status of who is buying EVs. Now, remember, these subsidies were paid for by taxpayers. We got a whole 3% increase in EVs. Whoop-de-doo. Needless to say, we're not getting our money's worth, folks. So people who are celebrating the infrastructure bill, I want to say, I have a high school friend. I'm not going to name names, but he was a famous model. You would know his face if you saw him on Facebook, was celebrating like how great Biden is, and because he passed the infrastructure bill. And I just was like, this is me. Like, hold your hands here. Don't don't get involved. Don't get in fights online. Because I just wanted to know, like, I just sit on my hands because I don't like to get in fights on the internet. Well, what are you so excited about? The infrastructure bill, famous model. Like, why are you excited about that? I don't know.
Because it's some sort of like massive boondoggle for one of the companies that he's a model for.
This guy modeled for Gucci. Like, if you Googled him, you'd know this face. But I'm not going to say. I'm so curious why someone like obviously media elite is excited about the infrastructure bill enough to put it on Facebook, and I'm very curious. Anyway. Okay. I'm not that excited about the infrastructure bill. Doesn't seem like we're really getting a bang for our buck, but let's look at the survey again. So who is buying electric vehicles? Now recall the data showing that Teslas are doing just fine. So then you can see that mostly it's people who are in an upper income bracket. 14% of people who make over $100,000 currently own an EV. Middle income and low income people, clearly they're not buying Teslas, and they're not buying the idea that they'll save on gas and maintenance, because the studies are showing they won't. These vehicles are more expensive to maintain when they do break down. And it's not just so easy to run up your electric bill to plug in your car. And charging can be expensive too, depending on where you live. Now, when you break it down by age group, it's mostly young people, but I'd say more evenly distributed for people 64 and older. So again, younger, wealthier Tesla drivers, not the average person. And most of this would not buy. These categories are increasingly growing. This red is just bleeding into this green. What the government would like to see is the green moving in the other direction. It's clearly not. Political party, okay, want to take some guesses? What political party do you think is buying EVs? Anybody?
Democrats?
Yeah, but even not that much, by maybe 3 percentage points more. Independents and Republicans, a piddly 6%. So, okay. And let's take a look at the reasons that they are not buying electric vehicles. I think this is a flawed question, because it's asking how much are you concerned about climate change, and is that why you're not buying it? Well, that is a false equivalency assumption that EVs help to combat climate change. We've looked at a lot of data that shows that that is not a sure thing, because if you live in a town where your electricity is run by coal and everyone plugs in their cars, EVs then contribute to more pollution. We saw that happen, I think, in Beijing or Hong Kong. I'd have to look up in my notes where that has actually happened.
The only way it makes economic sense, though, is or like for an environmental, like in an environmental sense, is if you ignore the mining for all of the rare earth metals, you have to ignore the mining for all the plastics that's in it. If you just like zero out all the components, then yeah, maybe if electricity just miraculously appears to all these magically made components, yeah, it's a great thing. But the reality is it just doesn't. It's not.
No. Yeah. Because I think an electric vehicle has at least 7 rare earth minerals, and a gas-powered car has 2 or 3. And these rare earth minerals are mined in terrible conditions. So you have to think about not just climate change, but also slave labor, human rights, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then all of the shipping costs, the fossil fuels and shipping and mining, and like you're not zeroing anything out.
No, you can't. So, but let's look at the question anyway. That they're trying to make the point that people who worry very little about climate change are the ones who would not own an EV or do not currently own. But even people who worry a great deal about climate change, this top rung here, they still don't want an EV, which either means that they've done the math and they realize an EV is not better for the environment, or they're not willing to make a sacrifice, even if that's true. So let us know what you think of these numbers. I think that it is indicative of the crumbling infrastructure of electric vehicles and how we need to just go back to the drawing board. Thankfully, we don't live in Canada, because we can say that we're happy that there are still fossil fuel cars, gas-powered cars, because as we talked about in the segment earlier.
Straight to jail.
Yeah. In Canada, if I say I don't like EVs, I'm okay with my gas-powered car, well, that will be a crime according to a new proposed bill. So I
you could
refer
face
to the
2
segment
years
we did earlier.
Yeah. We'll go back and watch that segment. 2 years in prison for speaking out against
Nicely. No, it's basically saying nice things about oil and gas.
About oil and gas.
And a $500,000 fine.
Yeah. You can't speak nicely about
up to
oil and gas. If so,
I want to know if in Canada. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What I was going to say is we need to start selling bumper stickers in Canada that said sorry about my car because it's not an EV.
Right. Sorry.
Like everybody driving a gas-powered vehicle should be required to have that on their vehicle.
There you go.
Sort of putting everything in English and French.
Yeah.
I'm just going to wear a T-shirt that says I'm sorry for being white. Like we'll just, walk around. I'm just sorry about my white privilege. I guess that's what we need to wear in this day and age.
What does that have to do with cars?
It's part of the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same thought crime. It's this. Don't you get it? Anyway, people in the chat want to talk about like what shirts we should sit. Yeah. See, he understands.
Okay.
You're with me on that? Are you? Okay. So we were saying earlier we need to make T-shirts for Canada to sell on our store at redactedstore.com that says we love, so we can piss off the Canadian government. That says I love oil and gas.
I don't like that though because it feels antagonistic without
You
context.
don't like that. I love antagonizing people. You're like, don't do that. It's antagonistic. I don't want this tyrannical government telling people that they can't talk about oil and gas. You're like, don't be antagonistic against the Canadian government. I want to give the middle finger to the Canadian government. So let's make a shirt and everyone in Canada can walk around and wear it. I love that idea.
I don't want to be all cancel culture and stuff, but in my opinion, if this is your take, that you're going to make it like illegal for people to enjoy the things that are perfectly legal and to talk about it, you deserve to be antagonized.
Okay.
Like, you're the type of person that like if I could punch a government in the face, I would punch somebody in the face for doing that, just for suggesting that should be.
Perhaps that's the difference between men and women. Yes, I would punch the government in the face. Natalie's like, guys, don't antagonize them. So let's make a shirt.
I just feel very uncomfortable going through like a Costco wearing a shirt like
I would love it. I'd be like, oh, we're going out in public today? I'm putting on my I love oil and gas T-shirt. You're like, honey, do you want to go to Costco with me today? Hold on. Let me go get my
Can we get gas?
F the Canadian government T-shirt. Can I wear that today?
Because I'm going to be living awful close to Windsor, and I'll tell you what, I will create an international incident over this.
Yes. Let's do it. So we got to come up with a theme. All right, what do you guys think? You guys let us know in the comments below. Like, what should
Can it be like the Tin Man?
I've got gas.
You get it?
I've got, but it needs to be like
oil can.
Hey Trudeau, I love oil and gas. It's got to be something simple and to the point. And we'll make a redacted shirt, and you come over to redactedstore.com. That's the place to go if you'd like to support independent journalism. We have our No Farmers No Food T-shirts over there, which have been a great addition to the store. You can check out everything we have at our redactedstore.com. We don't mark up the prices. We try to keep them very, very low, close to at cost, just to support what we do here, but we want to keep those prices, just the printing costs. And you can check them out. All our stickers you can put on your laptop, whatever you want to do. Go to redactedstore.com, and hopefully, we'll get that Canadian oil and gas T-shirt up and running real soon.
You don't like the Wizard of Oz theme? Get it? Because the Wizard of Oz is an anti-authoritarian book.
Right. And he
Tin
constantly
Man
is asking for
needs
oil.
An oil can. I thought that was clever.
Yeah, think of
Maybe
something on that.
A little too.
Hell yeah, just like, I don't know. Is that public domain, the Tin Man? I don't know. But we could, if we come up with our own Tin Man, just said need oil.
Oil
Not a question mark.
Yeah.
But,
I love oil. Yeah. Oil's great. Or just a picture of the Tin Man. It says oil is great. No?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Okay,
simple
we'll think on it.
See how the meeting of the minds are coming together. Anyway, all right, Redacted will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Yes, we are hoping to have Congressman Massey on the show. We'll see if that happens. He was very, very busy this afternoon fighting for our freedom. And thankfully, this FISA warrant amendment has not been added to it. And it was that was the amendment they were pushing for, that you would need to get a warrant in order to use this against Americans. Like, it seems like a simple amendment. And because that wouldn't be added to it, it's now dead in committee, and that means it's not moving forward. It's not going to come to the floor. So thanks to these brave patriots in Congress, they've stopped this. spying on Americans. I can't believe this is even an issue. But yes, that exactly is the case. And of course, you're seeing the left freak out online right now. They're like, they're going to put America's national security at risk with this. Okay, that's so spying on Americans is our main security problem right now, not our wide open border. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time with a lot more news. Hope you guys have a great night. Remember, oil and gas. Oil and gas. Good night, everyone.
Saves lives.
Save lives. Saves lives.